Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Ambika Devi. I pronounced it correctly. From, what is that? The Treasure Coast in Florida. We're going to go right back to her in 2 seconds. Please stop what you're doing. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. Now I'm paranoid. It is recording. The button's not moving. I hate that. We're going to go with technical difficulties. The one that's supposed to count down that says I'm actually recording. Oh, it's driving me nuts. I'm going to cut this out. I'm not going to cut this out. I'm going to see that started at 11:13. It's 11:13. That's the new recording. Wow. I am technologically impaired, but we knew that. I have books for sale. Links in the description. That's enough out of me. Back to our friend. That is Ambika, Ambika Devi, DEVI.com, and also at Ambika Devi on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We haven't really
actually on Twitter and Instagram it's a little different. But the best thing would be go to linktr.ee, the link tree, right? .com. That you don't need a .com, so it's linktr.ee/Ambika Devi, my name, Ambika Devi, and then you'll find my link tree with everything. Because they don't all match up. My name is the goddess of the cosmos, so some people beat me to the names in a few places, but I got the .com.
It's funny that some other people got DreamWizard already out there. I mean, I'm not the first one to ever think of it. But
there's a lot of people using Wizard, you know?
It's true.
Actually used to teach at a school of wizardry.
Very cool.
Did you know that?
I did not know that. I know nothing about you. So this is the part of the show where we say, who are you? And what would you like people to know about you?
Well, I did a little over 5 years teaching and writing curriculum for a school of wizardry. And that's curriculum that I teach. And prior to that, I taught university for 21 years, teaching holistic health. And back when I was in college the first time, because I am a bit of a nerd, Ben, I was in Philadelphia and I was going to art school. And I was taking courses at Temple University. And I think that's the first time I dove really deeply into psychology and dreaming, because I was allowed from my university to go to neighboring schools and universities to gain credits. And they had a dream lab, dream tank kind of thing, and an analysis course that I was able to be in for more than one semester. That was super cool to get credits doing that, because it's always been a passion. And then later, I just kept getting interested in it. I've been a meditator since I was 6 years old. So dreaming and meditation very early on became an understandable realm for me as relating to each other. So I've been working with this imagination, different psychologies and different spiritualities will call these different realms different things. You probably can tell from my name, or maybe you can't, that I've been studying Sanskrit and Eastern philosophy for a very, very long time. And dreams have always woven their way in and through. I'm also an astrologer, Ben, and astrology gives so much fascinating information about dreaming. And if you're a really avid dreamer and dreams are part of what makes you feel whole, because I know a lot of people really tune into their dreams and utilize them. And then when you go through periods and you're not remembering and retaining dreams, it can really be off-putting. And I've unlocked patterns in astrological transits that seem to affect this. So that's something really fascinating to me as well.
Yeah, that is all very cool stuff. So my specialty, and I'm very open about this, is I'm a pretty hardcore scientific skeptic. And so there's this entire realm of supernatural, we might say, or alternative sciences that I am not expert in. And I don't make any claims about. I can say that's not what I do. But then again, I ride that line between the purely scientific and the spiritual metaphysical, and try to be a kind of translator across that space, because a lot of what's going on in our dreams, at the very least, it feels supernatural. It feels like this otherworldly space we're inhabiting, where anything can happen, and sometimes our dreams come true. in our dreams, and sometimes our dreams come true, which I don't know what to do with any of that. So I make no claims to understanding that. It's not yet not yet courses of wizardry I have approached and mastered. So, but it is interesting. You said you taught at a school of wizardry. So for me, it means
I actually taught courses on dreaming.
Very cool. And this is something like, so I do what I do when I'm the wizard and whatnot, but I also enjoy speaking to different practitioners, because a lot of times and I tell folks too, I'm not the guy. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the only one you should talk to. Maybe you take the same dream to multiple people and get different perspectives. I got one way of doing things, seems to work, but that doesn't mean it's the only way, or I'm not going to tell you to, or that I would tell you not to go to other people.
Well, in the course the series of courses, because it was more than one semester at Temple University, what we began with was looking at the different classic psychology studies of Gestalt, Jung, and Freud.
Oh, yeah.
And then what we would do would be that we would play those roles and analyze, and if we were doing Gestalt, we'd all act out somebody's dream. It was super cool, and I learned a lot of techniques about working with dreams that didn't make sense to me at all, of using these different styles. Then I became more fascinated with, well, what about the meditation connection, and what do yogis think about dreams? How do they see it? And as I dug into it and studied even more, I discovered that there is actually a level of meditation called dream yoga.
Oh,
and that could be similar to what we label well, there's different labels of how we can make a dream happen, or go back into a dream, or work deeper into a dream with manifesting. And you mentioned earlier, dreams that actually come to be. Well, yogis believe that a lot different than Western psychology.
Oh, yeah.
We yogis believe and prescribe to the idea, I would say it's not really belief. It's beyond that. It's kind of in us. That everything is a dream. We call it Maya. You might have heard that term.
I have, in some contexts. Yeah.
And that we are just acting out the dream here in what we call reality.
Yeah.
I also think at this moment when I'm saying something like this about Crazy Horse, because he believed that the dream realm was real and that this, what we call reality, was the illusion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
and
classic.
And that kind of relates to the yogi's kind of perspective, that Eastern philosophy. I'm fascinated about bringing it all together, all these stories, all these myths from all these places, including the science and psychology to, help my clients. Because people do come to me with a lot of confusion as an astrologer, and dreams come into the conversations all the time. So there was a point when I was studying astrology, another college degree I have, that yes, you can get degrees in astrology. I had a teacher who was a dreamer for Scotland Yard.
Interesting.
You might want to dig into that, Mr.
For sure.
Wizard.
No,
because,
for sure.
Yeah. And she's from the UK. She's a very famous astrologer. She was actually, for a little while, Princess Diana's astrologer.
Wow.
And she's written a lot of books. So we would talk about dreams a lot. She was my professor for a bit. And she even tried to get me to be one of the dreamers for Scotland Yard. She actually she dreamt something that saved thousands of people.
Wow.
She had a dream about a building and a bomb, and she saved people.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on that we don't really know about? All these mystical realms, all these things. I've worked with police solving crimes as an astrologer. One of my colleagues worked with the fire department with serial arson. I've been on TV. I've written for newspapers and magazines. But yet things like this, they still are in pop culture. Why?
Yeah, it seems like, for me at least, I don't know what to do with it or how to make sense of it. So it's not something I denigrate, but it's something I definitely don't endorse, in the sense that I don't feel confident that I understand it well enough to promote it as something specific or explain it to people. So it's great to have folks on who are like, I've lived in this world for a long time, and you get it much better than I do. So I just let you tell the story as it is.
Well, maybe, who knows? I'm always available to come back and we can dive into other topics. But We're here to definitely talk about a specific dream, right?
Yeah, that's what we do for like the show so it sounds like it's a good time to get started.
But there's a little bit more. My first book, Lilith, actually has characters' dreams that you go into with them. So I'm so fascinated. I actually wrote it into a novel that we're in a character's dream.
Very cool. I've always been fascinated with those kinds of movies too, that give us, or books that give us that experience of, and like you were saying earlier, the whole, am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? What is the nature of reality?
Exactly.
And mankind's had that concept of a dual reality, or questioning perception, very much so related to our dreams, because we close our eyes and crazy shit happens. This is way back before we had language. And then we open our eyes again and all that stuff never happened, or did it? And we don't know. And that's stuck with us. That's got to be in our DNA. So there's much more under the sun or in the world than is dreamt of in my philosophy, Horatio. I can never get that quote right, but Shakespeare, he knew what he was talking about.
Time for a sticky note.
Right? I'll have to put that up there. It was not fresh on the top of my head, so I fumbled for it. But
I was impressed. You even, went. It took me an extra couple seconds to,
realize what I was trying to say.
And I love Shakespeare.
That's probably me more than you.
He keeps me company all the time.
Oh, very nice. Look at that. You got a Shakespeare plushie and a little Yoda. I see that. And an owl. Oh, just before we jump into the dream thing, my basic philosophy on what is it to be a wizard, I think it's absurd and humorous, and that fits with my personality to say, oh yeah, I'm a wizard. But it's both absurd and absolutely true metaphysically, in my opinion. It's someone who has become wise over time, and that's why there's the gray beard and long hair, and walking with a staff because you're old and you need a stick to help you, and you speak magic words that give people information or things they need to know or understand, and you can very often maybe see the future if you've got enough experience to draw from, to say, I understand cause and effect. I know where this is going. I've seen it before. So I think it's both absurd and absolutely true what I'm trying to become. I say, I'm just beginning on this journey, and I may be like a D&D style level 1 wizard. I got the robes in the book, but I'm working on it. I need the experience points. So that's what I get from these interviews.
There are many, many different types of magic. At the school where I was a dean, we had 16 departments.
Wow.
So, for me, dreams fit into metaphysics, but they had taken a metaphysics department and broke it into multiple departments. Dreams have always been a part of teaching holistic health. Dreams can be very, very helpful. I remember I was having some physical things that needed addressing, and I was seeing an acupuncturist, and we were kind of hitting a wall with what to do. And she said, why don't you dream the answer?
Oh, yeah.
And so I did. I had this dream. I brought it to her because I didn't really understand it. And she identified it was a particular Chinese herbal formula, gave me the formula, and that changed things.
Yeah. And actually going through, so I've published now 12, working on 13, 14 books of historical dream literature. So I'm reading everything Freud and Jung would have been familiar with going back centuries in order to develop their theories, drawing together the symbolism and the psychology of it all. And there's a specific term for that. It's prodromic dreams. And that goes all the way back to, what was it, Galen in the Age of Antiquity, one of the Galen of Pergamon. I can't remember where he was from, but he's
Well,
one of the.
remember, I'm more Far Eastern, so
Yeah, no, this was Greek.
I'm learning. Yeah. Oh, Greek. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this was one of the
well, Asclepius is
yes.
the Asclepian Dream Temple.
Yeah, and I'm sure. So Galen was one of the earliest
just below
references.
The Parthenon. I've actually been there with a group of astrologers.
That is amazing.
And we went to Greece for several weeks to dream. How about that?
That'll do it. Getting out of your comfortable environment, having new experiences.
So we studied the
dreams.
academia while we were in Athens. Then we went to Santorini, which is so beautiful. But then we went to Crete. We call it Crete in English.
Because why wouldn't we?
we went to Crete, to the southern shore, to a place called Lutro. And the only way there is either hiking or a ferry. You can't get there, and there's only maybe a truck or two there, just so they can bring stuff up from the ferry up the hill to where the village is around the cove, and it is so peaceful. We went there for a week of dreaming, and it was phenomenal. Cool. So I spent a lot of time quiet, alone in nature, and then just I had a beautiful room with windows that just opened up to the sea, and the Aegean is just amazing. So peaceful, so quiet. So
oh yeah. If I were a traveler, there's a lot of places I'd like to see, but I'm just I like my comfortable little cave. I just kind of hang out here and think. But just to bookend that, the idea of prodromic dreams, as much as you can learn about your own psychology from dreams, you can also learn about your physiology. You will often have dreams, tell them to a practitioner, and they can say, that seems to indicate this type of physical problem. Let's see if we work towards treating that, if things get better. And it works. And that's over 2,000 years old, that tradition. You know, we've kind of lost a lot of these ancient secrets. Maybe we're in the middle of a renaissance. We're bringing them back. We'll see.
We can hope. Yes.
I do hope to popularize it. But talking about learning about your own psychology in dreams, you have one particular one to share with us?
Well, it's actually one of those times where you dream a fragment one night, and then you're thinking, why the next day? And then the next night, I went into that and went into it deeper. Wow. So here's what happened. Yeah. The dream fragment on night one, and it's so fresh, I didn't even have to look back in a dream journal. It was so profound, and it triggered even a dream way in the future. But let's just talk about this two-nighter.
Sure.
So I used to live in South Philadelphia when I went to art school. I went to Philadelphia College of Art. And I lived in the Italian market for a while. So I wasn't right on the street of the market. I was up an alley, a very quiet street, midway up. But you would call it an alley. It was a very small street. Only one vehicle at a time could go down it. And I dreamt this dream when I was here living in Florida. So it was years and years and years later. I was back in Philly living there in the 80s. So that tells you.
Yeah.
How long ago. And so in the first night of the dream, I find myself on the street where the market is. And they were closed on a particular day of the week where it was just dead silent. Trash had been picked up, but nothing was open on this day. So in the dream, I show up and it feels like it could be early morning or it could be evening. I wasn't sure. And I find myself standing on the street, which is 9th Street in Philadelphia, in the Italian market. And I walk along and I see a green awning, a deep green awning, like you see, because there are fruit sellers, fishmongers, cheese stores, all sorts of things. And the market comes out onto the sidewalks when they're bustling and doing their thing. But on this day, just like a quiet closed day, no, but awnings will still be out, and you're walking in shadows if you're in the daytime. So I'm walking along and I come to a green awning and I open the door and go in. Now, a lot of these properties were originally houses that turned into shops. And this one was typical. It felt like the first floor room. And these were typically 3-floor, but single room dwellings. Some of them extended out. They called them Father, Son, Holy Ghost house because that's what they call them, as Italian, it's Catholic, and everything is there. So I walk in and my dream body's thinking, or my dream self, my dream connection is thinking, I'm in some kind of old Father, Son, Holy Ghost house. And there's a bar, which could be, a renovation for a little bar. There's a couple of old pickle or olive barrels that are made into tables, kind of high boy tables with seats. There's a couple of guys sitting, and there's a guy behind the bar wiping the bar with a rag. And I look around, and I look to my right, and I see a wall. And that's it. That was that fragment. I thought, wow, when I awoke after that session of sleep, what the heck? And all day long, I'm asking questions, what's this about? Give me more. That night, I dreamt that I went back. And I was super excited to be back there. Still nothing more lively, but when I walked into the house again, or the bar, the people acknowledged me just by sight. And as I looked to my right to that, what was a wooden wall before, or a paneled wall, it turned into a velvety curtain, like a theater curtain. And through it walked a version of Shiva. One of the, a lot of Far Eastern cultures use it, but I'll say Hindu gods of generation, regeneration, degeneration. He's time, he's death. He's his consort is Shakti, or his feminine side, because truly they all have masculine and feminine sides. And he was huge. I'm only 5 feet tall, but he was really tall. I was definitely cranking my head in my dream to look up at him. His skin was like marble. He was in a marble kind of looking glow. His hair was up. He was gorgeous, flowing kind of locks, but there was a lot of gold kind of flashing off of him. And he kind of moved his hand, but not really pulling the curtain back. It just disappeared. And kind of motion for me to walk through. So I turn to my right and I walk in, and I'm in some kind of mystical, angelic goddess realm. There are gods and goddesses of all shapes and forms. Some are floating on pillows, some are playing music, and there are all these different items displayed, almost like a museum or a shop. And if you've looked at sculptures and paintings of Hindu gods and goddesses, they often carry a lot of different items, anything from foods and treats to weapons. And I was attracted to a wall that had long staffs that were highly decorated, and they were on this display, and Shiva kind of motioned like, go over and pick one. He didn't talk to me in words the entire time. And if it was telepathic, it kind of just mushed into me. It wasn't like syntax. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Information. It was just kind of like, but it was gentle. It was like a gentle breeze kind of blowing into my awareness of like, go on, choose something. And I felt like a little kid. I was like, really? Like when your mom when my mom would take me to a toy store and say, go on, pick something, within a range, of course, but like Lego or something. I love Lego. Obviously, I have a bunch behind me. And I felt like that little kid, like, wow. It was beyond a prize. It was beyond a gift. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I went over, and I wasn't really consciously thinking, ooh, I'm looking for this or that. I just went over and pulled this staff off the wall. And first I looked at it really close to my eyes. And it was marbly white, like Shiva was, with gold lettering. I didn't recognize it. I couldn't read it. And I can read Sanskrit, but it was kind of I don't know, maybe we call it fire lettering. Some of the New Agers call it Akashic, which they're mispronouncing. It's Akasha. And it was just fantastic. I took this staff and I rolled it in my hands. I looked at it. I looked at the end and the gold detail. I looked at the blade and I thought, wow, this is quite an item. And I do have books about looking up, researching items and icons in these gods and goddesses. I did a lot of research on this when I was working on my master's degree and another college. That was actually at Hindu University. And it turns out that this was a tool that's used to guide elephants, but a very fancy one, not your sundry everyday version, but and they're called akusha. Actually, I should look that up and double check that I'm giving you the right words.
Peanut butter.
Let me do that because I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing.
Meanwhile, my puppy wants me to throw his toy.
It's an elephant goad. I wasn't fully.
That's okay.
Sometimes they're called a bullhook in English.
Gotcha.
And it's an ankush. Yeah, I did say it right. Good for me.
We're watching real-time research. This is how we do it, folks.
Yeah.
We don't come by these wisdoms accidentally.
I don't like saying, I don't like mispronouncing, and especially when I'm giving Far Eastern terms,
right? Because
they get so mushed up and whisper down the lane.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure. And interestingly enough, on this, on the Wikipedia page, if you look it up, it's you'll find it's how. Just under elephant goad, and goad is spelled G-O-A-D. So look it up that way because they have the exact hook configuration that I saw in the dream. However, that staff you'll see is very short. It's like a handheld, more like a hand hatchet. Because elephants have thick skin. Don't freak out, people. They're not killing or scraping the elephant's skin, but elephant's not going to feel a mosquito. I'm not a fan of using spurs and whips and crops and things on horses or elephants, but this is the old tradition of
it doesn't even pierce the skin.
Go.
The equivalent of a back scratcher.
Right. But the one in my hands was so long, and I called my professor after this dream. I wrote him a letter, and we had a call. He's over in India, and I came to realize, okay, why would Shiva give me this? Well, I had been doing a lot of devotion, a lot of chanting, a lot of meditating on Ganesha, and Ganesha is the elephant-headed god, right, with a fat belly. He's jovial, and the symbol of him holding the goad in his hand is to guide the mind. And I thought, wow, what a cool thing to choose in a dream, to be able to harness the mind, to be given this gift by a symbolic version of myself, because I'm very Gestalt. Everything is me in the dream.
Yeah.
I get into the Jungian symbology, but I think I go back to that. Everything is me. Every moment is me. Everything I do is me.
Every symbol and the way it plays out, in my estimation, I'm very much not like strictly a Freudian, a Jungian. I mash it all together. I'm a big jambalaya.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Freud can come in there every once in a while too.
Right. The funny thing about him is, he gets a lot of crap justifiably for things he got wrong, but he laid so much foundation. People forget. Yeah. We're standing on his shoulders.
Well, we can get stuck on certain bits that he talked about.
Yeah. And sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
In it.
Yeah, for sure. So was that basically...
long staff. Thank you, Freud. I know what you think of that.
Very well could be. But not where I was going to go with it right off the bat. And I didn't think it was necessarily phallic. This is why my process includes asking questions. You're giving me a lot of
but I do too. And that was... I looked up at him. I held it. He was like, "Go on, it's yours." And off I went, and the dream dissolved. I remembered it when I awoke. Years and years later, I was going through a situation in my real-time life, I'll call it. I had moved to Florida. I was already here when I had that dream, but I originally moved to Florida to be with my elderly mom. I promised her, I said, I will leave my music career, everything I'm doing. I was teaching yoga and a professional astrologer, all these things.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I'm going to leave it. I want to spend time with you, you know? And you're coming to the end of your life, and I want to help you when you need me, if you need me. And so I was coming into some transition time. And
is that roundabout when this dream happened? Was during that transition time?
No, that one happened earlier.
Well,
but now I'm flash forward in years later,
Gotcha.
Because there was a third part of the dream.
Come here.
There was a third version, or well, let's not analyze it yet. But years go by. She is coming to a time when we had to look at selling her place, moving to assisted living. And I was looking for guidance of what do I do? How do I handle this? You know, and I had a dream of being where we used to live in Pennsylvania, a different place. And I find myself with that tool in my dream again.
Oh.
And that dream had a lot of elements from Philly. There were roller skates, and I was talking to people I didn't know. I had roller skates. Then I needed some shoes because I wanted to go somewhere, and I caught a ride with somebody I met up with. And this dream was very fragmented, but how it ended up was I was walking barefoot, and I had the goat across my shoulders and was resting my arms on it, and I was walking in a new direction. So it's pretty cool. I haven't seen that elephant goat again since then, but
it very much crystallized it as something important to you, that type of thing.
Definitely. Well, I guess, thinking about how the symbol of Ganesha holding it, he's there, get him to help you steer in the right direction, to harness the mind, to not let the mind run away with you.
Sure. Know? Yeah. And that makes a tremendous amount of sense. That's, so what I normally do is we get the broad strokes. You want to get down again? I'm not going to pick you up. I'm going to pick him up again. I can't help it. He'll come back. Face. He's got his little stairs here, and he'll go up. There he goes. He's going to get up on the bed, and that's Cece, and that's Prince, and he'll get comfy there finally.
He was there before.
Yeah. Lay down, Butters. Come on. His name is Peanut Butter. That's funny.
Cute.
Oh yeah. So my typical process is shut up and listen, and the dreamer tells me the dream, then we go back through it and try and crystallize it not crystallize, but help me visualize it better.
Okay.
But there are definitely things that stood out right away, and that's what I do is I go back through it, start trying to identify those elements and expand on them even. So at the very beginning of the dream, you're at a place that you hadn't been for a decade or two by that time, maybe. I mean, this is back in the 80s, a place that was very much a specific kind of place at that time in your life.
Almost 3 decades, yeah.
Yeah, so you're, so for whatever reason, you're like and sometimes the beginning of a particular dream sequence is very important in that, in that way of saying everything that's about to take place starts and takes place in this particular kind of setting. So it's taking you back to that time in your life and saying, remember something about that experience, and in that context, go through the rest of this experience from that, in that context. So there's something about that place and that time in your life. And you said that was when you were going to art school, in South Philadelphia. So was it, were you involved in multiple studies, or that was the primary focus of living in that place at that time?
It was the primary focus, having a job
Yeah.
and going to art school. Yep. As soon as I completed art school, I left the city.
So it's very much the entire reason for being there. So there's something in there.
It could be. I'd have to look at my dream journal to see what year that occurred
Sure.
in one of my dream journals. I didn't get a chance to do that, to look it up this morning.
It's okay.
But as I think about it, why would I start out there? Back then, no, yoga was not so prevalent. I studied dance and I studied martial arts.
Okay.
I had taken a break from physical yoga. I've always been a meditator. And the martial arts school that I went to, we focused on meditation and healing a lot. We did reflexology, foot reflexology, all kinds of massage styles. After we would work out, we would actually do massage and things on each other, through our gis. But we worked out pretty hard.
Yeah, when I was taking Aikido, we would often do things like that of we're going to abuse the hell out of one set of muscles, and then you get to lay down and have someone, walk on it.
Right,
that kind of thing.
Right.
That was
and
a
we
lot of
would
fun.
meditate, so there was always that.
Okay.
And then go ahead, ask me. Or
no, that's
bring
right.
up
Yeah,
more.
no. So we just and that's just like point number one. We got 5 minutes on that almost. That's why these things can take up to 3.5 hours. We're going to try and go through a lot faster.
We're good.
Yeah. And it was this specific type of place that you actually do remember having been. So it was not.
No. Actually, that particular place, no, I had never seen before. It was typical like a place. So I knew this has to be South Philly. This has to be the Italian market. But no, it was down a little deeper. I would say from where my house would have been that I rented. But no, I did not recognize it. It was unknown territory.
Okay. And so this is one thing I do. I rattle doorknobs and sometimes they pop open. And I think even when someone says, no, your assumption is wrong, or the way you phrase that is not accurate, that gives us a clue too. So there's something about a generally familiar place, but it's somewhere new inside a familiar place. So you go someplace you've been, but not really. You've never been here yet. And you're going to go somewhere you've never been and see something you've never seen. So there's a very much aspect of moving deeper inside to see more. But in somewhere generally familiar. So it wasn't a completely new place. You weren't completely lost. It wasn't a completely fabricated city you've never been to, that kind of thing. So yeah, that juxtaposition of those, a new experience in someplace familiar. So I start getting these. These are the way my autistic associations start firing randomly. No, you go lay down. We're done. You gotta stop. I love you, boo boo. Go lay down. Go lay down. What else we got here? And it's very interesting that you put it as on one of the deserted days. This was not a busy day. This was a closed time. And I was also making notes back on this too, as far as it's one thing for it to be a busy, bustling, you are one of many. This is a well-traveled road with lots of activity, but this is a different conception of it. It's a place where everything is quiet. The hustle and bustle is gone. You're able to go at your own pace. You're not having to navigate anybody else doing their business. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to go. There's something, when you think of it that way, the idea of this setting it on a closed day in your mind. Does anything specific come up beyond what I've already tried to associate myself?
The first thing that comes to my awareness would be that having moved across the country, I did feel like nothing was really open. I had been coming to this area for decades because my family had a place here. And so I vacationed near here, but this house where I live is inland. They lived on the beach. So that was unfamiliar. I definitely have not had decent Italian food ever in Florida. And that was spoiled rotten living in the market.
Oh, for sure.
Actually, my first book takes place in the Italian market, so you'll learn a lot about it's a fiction story, but it's based on a lot of reality. And there were things about the market that were amazing, of never having to have anything in my refrigerator, really, for the years I lived there, because I could just go down the street.
Just walk outside. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were plenty of restaurants open uptown on Mondays, or when the market was closed.
So I'd want to understand that feeling a little more if I could. The first thing that popped into your head was nothing's open. Now, that was related to having...
It felt more peaceful, though. It was just peaceful and quiet, and there's nothing open, but then I walked into a door. I opened a door.
You opened a door.
Something
you found
open.
Something open.
No,
this is very true.
The market wasn't open, but something was open.
Okay, come here. I can't resist. He's so cute. You related it to an experience of having moved to Florida, where there isn't the same kind of street market culture, certainly, but also just a general less, how did you phrase it? You said, where nothing was open, where it felt like everything was closed all the time.
Well, it just wasn't, or maybe I wasn't open. Maybe I wasn't open to go explore it, But at the time, there were a lot of things where I've lived in other places, a lot more conveniences. I live in a tiny beach town. We don't have an exit on a highway. I have to drive through my town and another town. It takes an extra half hour to, go somewhere because I'm not right by an exit.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah.
And then my downtown culture is one block. Yeah. Not even a city block, So, and the idea of here's something that just came to me, and it never occurred to me before. Yeah. Talking to you about this, Ben. Where I live, the culture is ice cream, beer, the sandbar. People take their boats to a sandbar island on the weekends, and the culture is very much tiki bar kind of thing. And in the dream, nothing seemed open, but there was a bar. Yeah. And that was something that was frustrating. Where's the healthy food? Where's the culture? Where are the museums? That it's not here. Yeah. And I lived in the Phoenix Valley. I lived in Scottsdale. I didn't really think there was a lot of culture there either. Please forgive me, Arizona. I'm not a big fan of big cities on the beach. I've been to many, and they're not my favorite. Except for Edinburgh's pretty cool. And they have a lot of culture. But here in the U.S., there's museums, there's things to do, there's street markets, there's streets blocked off, but it's just, maybe it's because I've traveled a lot and I'm a little more spoiled. But that did just kind of pop in my awareness just now.
There is I think that's a very powerful association. That's why I ask these questions and ask for more details and try and give as much mirroring feedback. You went down again. You're a crazy person. Because what popped into your head was that cultural difference. And it can be good or bad. So what I like is quiet town in the mountains that's at least a half an hour from the freeway. I don't have that right now, but I like it.
I love the mountains too. Anywhere where there's nature. I mean, I have jungle behind me. I live in a wild preserve. So
there's a big cultural...
I've got neighbors on either side, but behind and in front is wild. And I love that.
And there's a big cultural difference from, the quiet life of a small town versus the densely packed. And you do get more culture in that sense. There are different cultures. There's that, but there's the idea of multiple layers of culture packed more densely together in a city. You're just going to get more of it. And that's very much two different ways. So what I was trying to tease out of my own mind too, is this idea of now you're also juxtaposing, you're bringing your experience of the deserted feeling of these empty streets at the place you're at compared to where you were. And you've placed it on top of this. So you're actually bringing your current experience at the time back into this other framework from the past and saying, now go explore in this context. See, we're getting more layers of meaning kind of piling up on top. This is why I do it. I got to go through my process like that, because one of the times, like building something with Legos, I don't know what it is until it's done. And yeah, and then you made that association too with the tiki bar thing. So that could be. I mean, the first thing that jumps into my mind is the idea that if you were to go seeking interaction, the tiki bar culture, as you phrase it, would be a place to encounter that. So maybe you're thinking what makes sense in your mind at the time, and it all depends on if these things are resonating with you or not.
Right. Of course.
But you did find a place and you walked into it, and it was a bar, and that was on the first
night.
It
was, but I didn't order a drink. I didn't interact.
You weren't there for the alcohol necessarily, or
I didn't go there even to interact with the humans.
Yeah, that's very true.
Really, they sort of acknowledged me the second time, but it was pretty obvious once the Shiva being appeared that's why I was there, and I was only using their wormhole doorway to the celestial realm. I mean, when I hear people talk or I see animation about fantasy realms, this dream was wow. With the music, with what I saw, it was super phenomenal.
Oh, that's the other thing too, is that you had mentioned, I'm trying to focus kind of more on the second go around. Like the first one seemed to set it up. It seemed to.
Oh, the first one was just, hey, this exists. I think that my meditating, questioning, pondering it the entire day caused the second level of the dream.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something stuck with you. And then that always amazes me too.
I was ready for more information.
Well, people that can go back into the same dream or pick up where they left off in some ways. That's
a
amazing.
Practice. It's dream projection, all these lucid dreaming. To me, these are all aspects of dream yoga.
Nice. That's a good category to put it in. I think it makes sense. Because a lot of people could think of yoga as like stretching. Yes, but a lot more.
I've seen people do calisthenics and call it yoga.
Yeah.
But the truth is, yoga is for the mind, and everything as part of the great body of science that is yoga is for meditation.
Yeah, and it's so much more. That's why people associate it with what, like stretching.
It's a brand name for an exercise program and stretchy pants.
Yep, for sure. But it is so much more. That's a good thing to me. If people come away from this with nothing else,
well, that's what my master's degree is in yoga. So
right. So I
have a lot more to say about it. I wrote a thesis
for sure. Well, and the idea also,
I could have been writing my thesis at the time. I do need to look at the timing. Because also I finished my first book, which had the dreaming in it, back in 2013. So I think my guesstimate is this dream was somewhere around then.
And you mentioned
but it could have been after
writing your thesis as well. Was that something that had completed by that time, or you were looking forward
That's
to
what
working
I
on
feel
it?
so bad I don't have the time on this dream.
That's okay.
Because I wasn't sure which dream I wanted to talk to you about today. And I just let one come into my awareness this morning.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I think this would be a cool one to talk about. I wonder what Ben has to say about it.
They're all pretty cool, I'll tell you.
And then I got sidetracked with people needing to call me and ask me questions.
Yeah.
while I was trying to prep for you.
Well, just from my perspective, my process tends to be a little more successful with more recent dreams, but it just takes a little more digging, a little more reconstruction, a little more putting things together.
To be quite honest, I hadn't been dreaming for a while. I just started up again, and that
as of
goes
today,
back to what I
a
few days ago.
Gotcha.
A few days ago.
Yeah,
and remember I said something about astrological transits.
Yeah,
I had a lot of planets going through the house of dreams, which can either stifle or really accelerate dreaming.
Yeah. And
given what's Saturn, which is a little bit more still, when it transits your 12th house, it can really slow things down.
Okay.
And I was not remembering dreams, fragments, little bits. Of course, I was writing them down, trying to encourage whatever part of me to bring some more dreams, but I've just noticed it. Just noticing I am dreaming. I become aware that I'm dreaming when I'm dreaming.
Wow.
I have that ability, and to manipulate quite often into a more lucid situation. But that had not been happening much during the lockdown. Definitely not in the last year.
Fair enough, yeah.
And it takes Saturn more than a couple years to get through a house.
Okay.
So I figured, well, probably this is causing it, and it's okay to go through a period with no dreaming.
Yeah.
Because if you're a dreamer like me, you can get stressed out if you're not remembering any dreams. And this morning when I was also something I know from Ayurveda, which is a sister science to yoga, is that there are particular hours during the day that can induce more ready remembering of dreams. And between 6 a.m., 10 a.m. in the morning, look, if you're 5 a.m. wake, then you're missing that kapha time where the earth and water are more dominant in elements, and you have a higher potential of dreaming. I did awaken early this morning, kind of sort of remembered a fragment and thought, you know what? I don't have anything big and pressing till later. I feel like sleeping a little bit more, and I slept till almost 10 this morning.
Nice.
And I awoke drooling. I don't usually do that. And I was having a lot of imagery and dreams, and I thought, wow, that I needed the rest. I definitely did. My body felt really tired the last couple days, and I awoke feeling much more energized, and just knowing that, wow, the dream realm feels more close by than it had been for a while. So I look forward to filling my pages in my dream journal.
Right.
Over
Undoubtedly,
the next few days.
undoubtedly, my wizardly influence is reaching you way over in Florida.
Well, and I always tell people when they feel like they're not remembering their dreams, the best thing you can do is get together with somebody and talk about dreams. And so I also feel like this conversation is going to help induce a lot of good
I hope
dreaming.
so. Yeah. Well, so you were talking about not remembering and just fragments. That's my life. I have literally 5 dreams I can actually remember that were a story, that were more than the go-to example I have recently. I had a dream where there was a car and the door was open. That's it. And I couldn't tell if it was the back seat. Couldn't tell you the color of the car. Couldn't tell you why I was there, who was there, what I was doing there, who opened the door.
Were you in or out of the car?
I was out of it, just looking, and
the door was just open.
The door was open. I was kind of in that space between the door and getting in the car. Don't remember what happened before or after. That's
thinking about moving forward on something, maybe, or
could be
taking a ride.
Seemed like it might have been a back seat. Was I waiting for someone to get out of the car? No, nothing. So those are the kind of fragments I get, and that's
a good one.
That's it. That's it. But that's the entire realm of my dream life for the last 40 years.
Maybe Peanut Butter knows more. Maybe he seems to.
No, he wants me to throw his baby. He doesn't know I'm busy. He doesn't know I'm busy. I'm sorry.
He wants to play.
No. Get your baby over here. Get over here.
There you go.
He'll spend half an hour getting his baby 3 inches closer so I can actually reach it. Come here. But I also wanted to mention that you cannot bark through the whole interview. Come on. That this was taking place at you couldn't tell if it was early in the morning or later on in the evening, which typically we've got those dusk and dawn transitional times. So this is definitely trying to set you up, in my estimation, for a
I would say transitional experience.
Yeah. So look at this need for transition, or the experience of having a transition in this context of looking back at your past when you were in art school, and these deserted streets that should be busy, which is a plus and a minus.
Not necessarily. I mean, it didn't throw me that it was quiet.
It wasn't a disturbing experience.
Oh, the market's closed today. That's all.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal. I mean, I lived there.
For sure. Yeah, but it was
liked it on the days when it was closed.
Okay, so maybe there was a better association.
See,
with
what
that.
would happen is the trash would be piled up really big after a market week, right? Then it would get all cleared out and cleaned. I mean, they hosed the sidewalks and the streets. And so I was there when the market was clean, quiet, subdued.
Yeah, that's what I was
Peaceful.
leaning into, was that idea that this particular presentation of this space was meant to reflect a particular idea of, and it seemed like a parting of obstacles. Take things out of the way that weren't relevant, let you calmly, quietly get where you're going. And you chose to show yourself opening a door into a very home-like atmosphere, but that was also a public space in a way, like a bar is,
or a business,
or a business, but it's definitely that idea of
it almost feels though like in South Philly, and I'm sure there's other places in the world where these are, it's almost like belonging to someone personally. It's not a public place. Like I've been in places. Okay, so you've seen movies that have scenes in very Italian neighborhoods and cities, I'm sure. And
come here.
So you walk into a business, then you walk in the back room. There's probably a giant espresso machine, right? There's probably a guy tending, and then the boss is in a misty, darkened area, and the camera's taking you. The character's moving for whatever meeting is going down, good or bad.
It's a social club.
Exactly.
As they say.
And trust me, I had been in places like that.
Yeah.
But not exactly like what I was seeing. Not with that kind of bar. Although there have been other dreams with bar scenes, with a bartender. I once had a dream where I was at a bar and the characters were so distinct that I was able to identify them as planets. Then when I awoke the next day, I looked at the transits to my chart and I could see those planets transiting key points in my chart.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm glad I used the wrong word and you were able to correct me, because I suppose I didn't mean like a public
it's okay.
place.
I'm not offended. No, but I think this was key information to kind of get more detail.
It is. That's why I always say I'm happy to be wrong if it gets us where we're going. Get your baby over here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. No, it's public place was the wrong, but a place of social gathering, as opposed to someone's quiet living room that's not meant to be occupied.
Right. It was a social club for sure.
Yeah.
But they weren't very social.
He's got one of his claws stuck on his doll, and he's not gonna. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here, boo boo. Oh my goodness. Come here. Hold still. Hold still. Oh, he's got it stuck. Come here. Oh my goodness. This is usually
he needs a clip.
Oh, he does so badly. We just cut his hair recently, but go. I usually call this value-added content. Today it's a major distraction, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm all kinds of loosey-goosey anyway, but that's good. That this is there's something in that concept. And I like to not, on the second pass at least, not focus too much on understanding it, but kind of highlighting those things. And so it wasn't the same as a private home, quiet living room, a place you would expect not to find other people hanging out. It was more of a combination of this private home, but that had been converted into a bar, social club style. So there is something about coming to a place where other people would gather. Not a lot, but not an empty place. So within this empty place, you found a place where there's the hole in the wall, the out of the way, the little maybe private invitation only type of social club in someone's home. There's something in that imagery. I don't know what it is yet. You got your toe stuck again? Come here. Come here. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna put you outside. You gotta go. Oh, he's probably gotta go potty. 2 seconds. That's what it is. That's what it is. I usually put up with it, and it's comedic relief and amusing, but past a certain point, come on. Okay, but what did you find there? So the first time there was the blank wall, and you noticed that your first time there was just a wall, but the second time you came back, you realized the wall was actually a curtain. So it kind of
transmorphed in the dream.
In the dream, you watched the wall become a curtain?
It melted. Well, I can't say it became a curtain. It's like as the Shiva being moved through, it was kind of being moved like a curtain.
Gotcha.
but it did seem like a velvety theater curtain.
Yeah. And that is, I think, its own kind of very interesting symbology there, too, because you've got what would normally be an impassable barrier, a limit bounding a space, but you've got this transcendent godly figure turning an impassable barrier into a permeable place you can
now here's another thing.
Yeah.
That curtain wasn't red like a theater. It was green like the awning.
Okay.
So I think those are green lights.
Very much so. They could, I mean, if that's what it means to you, I
think it's like, go this way, you know?
Yeah. That you found the green awning, you're like, green means go. Maybe I'll go
it does
this way.
To me, definitely.
If that's what it means
so
to you,
that's
my
psyche. My connection to the psyche.
For sure. And you got invited in. No, but also I wanted to say the nature of the communication. So in dreams, seeing something happen visually is the same as knowing something. It's like, so I went to a house and it was my grandmother's house. Was it your grandmother's house? No, she'd never lived there, but I knew it was my grandmother's house. Then it's your grandmother's house. It is. It just is what it is, because you know it, you saw it. It's the same thing.
The more I'm thinking about this dream with you, Ben, it's cracking me up that, you know, all these Hindu gods and goddesses, or Far Eastern, because they're not just Hindu, that they were in... I accessed them through the Italian market. That just cracks me up.
Yeah,
you know, it's like,
for sure. It might be something about that
private social club.
Yeah, is that a time in your life when you'd be kind of when a door was opening in your mind to studying all these things, or had you?
No, I had already been studying. I started studying when I was 9 years old. Okay. At 6, I was taught to meditate.
Gotcha. So this wasn't a period of transition where you were leaning into a greater study of Eastern.
Oh, when I had the dream? Oh, most definitely. I mean, I had been working on a master's and a thesis.
Okay, when you had the dream, it was definitely.
I think the dream was after. It was well after. I believe I had graduated. I had already written my first book, which had a lot of dreams in it. My book called Lilith, and this all came up. It was so rich. You know,
sure.
It's such a rich dream with imagery that I wanted to share it with you.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And this, and the idea that you picked, so you would have been familiar, part of the reason for the question, familiar with multiple different gods, but it was Shiva.
Oh, it was definitely Shiva.
Specifically.
I had studied Sanskrit. I continued to, but I could not, this was not your average Sanskrit. It wasn't, and there are different ways to write the language. I read more of the block style. The Tibetans have a more kind of twirly-whirly way of writing it. This was even beyond their kind of script style. So I didn't, sometimes I don't know if you dream of holding something with writing on it in English and you can't remember what you were reading, but boy, you could read it in the dream.
That's a pretty common experience. Yeah, not actually seeing the words. Very rare to actually see.
I was
written
really
letters.
Seeing it, but I couldn't read the language. You know.
Yeah, that's its own unique. I'm gonna get to that for sure. Its own unique element
and gold
of it,
and just like wow.
So you got
I'm
this.
I'm still blown away by it.
So there was a wave of the hand. Well, first you saw Shiva in all his glory. And definitely more presenting in an androgynous aspect, or very masculine.
He is very androgynous.
Fair
He's
enough.
actually half and half in a lot of paintings. You'll see, half female, half male.
Is that how you perceived that?
No. He
incarnation?
had a slight more masculine, but when he is masculine, he can still be mistaken as feminine because he just has that beauty.
Fair enough.
But he was definitely a boy.
Yeah. Well, I would say that. So it would be a different type of symbology.
He's usually shirtless. He usually has mala beads on. And he's got dreadlocks. His hair's in a bun with dreadlocks. Nothing real super fancy as far as jewelry. I mean, sometimes he'll have earring loops or other, maybe other adornment, depending on who's painting or sculpting him.
Yeah.
He had a little bit of adornment, but the thing that took me out the most was just the quality of his skin surface was gleaming like melted marshmallow kind of marble look, like gleaming.
Okay.
Gleaming white.
Yeah. Well, that's why I came back around to ask you about the masculine feminine presentation for that particular image, was that because you had mentioned that
Yeah, I mean, he had a male chest,
could be
and he
either
was
way.
wearing some sort of dhoti fabric, around his bottom part. Yeah.
So whatever that image was meant to portray to you at that time, whatever reason you conjured it to in that form was...
Well, that's the mantra. His mantra is a mantra that I was initiated to when I lived in an ashram. So, I mean, I have a deep connection with the idea of Shiva or the mantras associated with Shiva. But at the time, my mentor, my teacher, my guide had me focused on Ganesha, which is a cosmic child in a lot of stories of Shiva's.
Yeah.
Shiva and his counterpart. There are stories of Parvati taking clay from her body and creating and then breathing life into what became Ganesha.
And I remember there was a was it? Shiva had been gone for a long time.
Oh, he goes off and meditates. He doesn't interact. And he looks so peaceful and kind and loving. He can be depicted as fierce. He can be like covered in ash and dancing on bones. And
well, that's where I was going with that. The idea of how did Ganesh get the elephant head is, well, he when Shiva came home one day, if I remember the story right, Ganesh was there.
Ganesha was guarding the gate
and wouldn't let him in, so he killed him and took off his head.
Well, he actually had the four directions. Yeah, come in and chase him, and then he threw his. He has like a trident, like Neptune does, and he threw it and seared the baby's head, and he sent his four guards into the four directions to find a new head. He said, the first good head, bring it back. And they found a baby elephant whose mother had been killed. They asked the elephant, is it okay? Shiva needs a head. He screwed up. And Parvati is so pissed. So can we... And the baby elephant said it would be my honor to give my head. So they took the head and Shiva put it on and did whatever chanting and magic he needed to do to make it bond and work. And that's how the original Ganesha ended up with the elephant head.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite stories.
There's a lot. Oh, it's definitely a favorite. There's a lot of symbolism between Shiva and a weapon and a goad, specifically that belongs to Ganesha to steer you in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that this dream is just so magical to me.
Oh, it is for sure. And we're still at the part where, and that's why I was focusing on which aspect did you see of Shiva? And it was definitely the typical, we might say, masculine aspect that was opening this door. It would have been maybe a different meaning if it had been a more explicitly feminine presentation. So there was something you could have chosen differently based on what you were trying to represent with your own mind. So for what that's worth, that's what we got. And so he opens this portal, opens the pathway up. And I like that idea of making the impassable passable, opening a way for you to something else that is special. And when you got inside, what you saw was just beauty and multiple other gods, and there was music, and there was it
was celestial. I mean, there's no other word I can use.
That's a very good word. You're opening to a celestial realm, an otherworldly place, a place that is not typical physical reality where you started. You started in a
there
very
were beings
real...
floating on pillows, playing venas and sitars and flutes, and
you had that distinct impression of your senses were filled, or I wouldn't say assaulted necessarily, but filled by multiple visual, auditory. I think you mentioned food at one point, maybe smells, just all.
No, there weren't. No? I didn't say food. No.
No. What did I?
No.
What was the other thing? There was something else that wasn't just sights and sounds. It was dancing. Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Music. It was
mostly music.
I don't recall like a perfume or any scents.
floating pillows, music, and items everywhere. That's what it was. I was thinking of something else. It was, and did you have an experience of?
They were all tools, weapons, things that belonged that we see on sculptures and in paintings, and things also that I didn't recognize.
Well, this space in general, what was the scale of it? Was it a large
Huge.
room or football stadium?
I don't even recall a floor below. It was celestial. If you've seen movies with really good CGI where people walk into dreams or they walk into heaven or they walk into clouds, but it wasn't cartoon-like in any way.
And that's why I wanted to get an idea of the sense of the scale. So this just wasn't welcome to the room next door.
I didn't see the end of it.
Yeah, it was expansive.
It did feel like a space.
Yeah.
There was something along the left with smaller tools, displayed down low, and I could have easily have reached out. There was a wall in front of me with these long staffs. And without thinking, I walked over to the one that I ultimately chose. I just went to it.
Okay. So there was a much larger space than you had left. We would say if you expected a hole to be opened in a wall, it would go to the room next door, in the house next door. So you went somewhere else outside of the physical realm even. And there was not only everything you could see in this huge space that you knew was bounded in its own way, but beyond your ability to perceive those boundaries. And it was filled with all the other celestial beings that inhabited it.
There are beings in those mythologies that are not necessarily gods and goddesses. That I would liken them more to angels or fairies, because there can be winged ones. There are ones that specifically dance to entertain the gods and goddesses, and there are ones that play music that are specifically there to entertain. So I got the sense that they were kind of a mix of these apsaras and Gandharvas, they're called, but also other gods and goddesses.
That's what I was going to try and clarify in my own mind too, is if you did see any other specific gods and goddesses, or if you just kind of knew this is where they are.
Well, I probably did identify a few, but that wasn't a big deal.
Doesn't come to mind. Okay.
Nah, like it was more just the entertainment.
Yeah, and it would be a different kind of symbology to say there were none. You know that
I
for
sensed
sure.
that they were, but I wasn't going, there's Lakshmi, there's Saraswati, there's Vishnu. No,
Yeah, that's what I try to tease out the distinction from is it might have been a different feeling to the whole thing is I was in this space alone with one specific god and nothing but underlings. But there were actually others there. This was...
I sensed it, but I didn't need to identify.
Yeah, and no need for that. Just there were done. It happened.
Well, if you read those scriptural writings like the Bhagavad Gita, it all filters to just there's one omnipresence. There are many names and forms, but everything, including you and me, are part of that one thing, which is Ishvara.
I definitely appreciate that Eastern perspective of all things are one, and we are, and that connection between us. And if you look at simply the laws of thermodynamics and physical reality, it's literally scientifically true as well. But so you were, and that's interesting too. So we got from a personal house perspective social club where it is open but to a select few. Now you're in kind of the gods equivalent of their little social club where there's music and there's their tools, or they're the tools that the gods use to implement their will in the world. And there's some over on the left hand side, but really right in front of you, what draws your attention is this wall of staves. And in this this is what I was saying earlier too, with the idea of if you know something happened in the dream, it just happens. That's how this, we might call it telepathic communication, but you're not hearing words. You're sensing the force of will that is letting you know where to go and what to do. So this communication is happening, and it's happening in a way that directs your attention to a range of implements you can choose freely. What speaks to your heart? What draws you to it? And the word you used was attracted. You were attracted straight to this thing that ended up being the elephant hook that is also sometimes in the pictures with Ganesh. And you chose that, and there was writing on it that you couldn't read. And so there was like a pathway to more to learn. Like a new challenge had been put in you put a new challenge in your own hands in a way. And there's got to be some kind of a connection between like having the door to mystical secrets opened by the head guy, so to speak, and welcoming you in, showing you the tools at your disposal that are going to give you godlike power in the world, possibly.
Wow.
Not omnipotent.
I'd settle for selling some books.
Well, yeah, no, but like powers beyond human ability without these special tools. There's something special about grasping the tool, having it given to you, offered to you.
Sure.
That seems like it's going on here. And the one that gravitated towards you was, as you described it, the guide to the mind. Did I write that down correctly? To guide the mind is
to think of it this way.
Yeah.
Ben, the goat is used to tell the elephant, go this way, go that way. So to steer the elephant.
Yeah.
Right? Or get the elephant to go. Mm-hmm. Now, if we look at Western psychology, the elephant is used as a metaphor in Western psychology of a part of the mind that gets us to do stuff, and it's really hard to stop it or steer it. Like, for instance, with, let's just use dietary choices. Mm-hmm. It's a common use to say the elephant and the rider of making choices about what we eat. So as I look at this dream, the elephant is that part of the mind that can run away and charge and do things. And here I chose a tool to guide the mind, to be able to steer it, to be able to get it to function at my will.
Yeah, for sure. It almost seems like you might have solved this dream in that sense by the description of the object that you chose and understanding what it really means.
Oh, it took me a few years, trust me.
To get around to that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's where I was kind of going with it. And then it's, when we start putting all those different elements together, if we were to tell a story about the dream, it's like your mind wanted to take you back to an earlier time in your life when you perhaps knew less, when you were living in a different environment and you were taken to a place you were familiar with, but it was empty of obstacles. We kind of got around that way, and the quiet or a more pleasing environment to be in terms of a more functional environment for acquiring new information. And you were able to read the signs of the awning that told you this is the green light, go this way. You went in there, and there's the social aspect, but it's small, it's intimate, it's more personal. And that opened a doorway, and at that point, the supernatural forces welcomed you into a much deeper understanding, secrets in a way, places most people wouldn't be able to go, and offered additional tools. And specifically the one you gravitated towards was choosing mastery of the mind, of my own mind in what? If I put the story together that, and you just finished your thesis and you're in that time in your life, why did you want to look back and imagine yourself going through this process to achieve that tool? Does anything come to mind with that storyline?
I think I could identify many times of, the more distance that gets between me and when I recalled the dream, the more I see how that goad is a part of me now.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I can now tap into it if I feel things are a little wonky or out of control.
And it's also one of those tools where it's very powerful, and now you have it in your hand, but you also got to start learning how to use it. It's it will function, but you also have to wield it.
I wonder if I'll learn to read what's on it, or I'll get that info one day.
Yeah, and even though you're, and that was very much, I think the last kind of piece of powerful symbology that came to mind was that you've got the tool in your hand, you don't really know how to use it yet. You can't read the writing on it. You don't understand was it The Greatest American Hero? You remember that show? He lost the instruction book for the alien suit, and he could barely fly. That's kind of how a lot of us feel when we've, say we've finished our education. Now we start a job and we got to put it to work. Oh boy, now the learning begins. Now, as my Aikido instructor said, when you get your black belt, you become a serious beginner. I love that analogy too. Like, you're right.
Yeah. Well, at many, well, not at many, but where I've studied yoga many places. I have certifications from 5 different places. 2 of them, one is what I would call a yoga center, but it's a retreat center. So I had to go live there for a period of weeks at a time to study different things. But then I lived at what I would call a bona fide ashram, Shivananda Ashram, which is where I got the name Ambika Devi. And that's a living temple. There are what are called pujas, which are ceremonies going on at different hours every day. There are meditations every morning, every evening. It's very regimented. It's like boot camp. It's not la spa time.
Yeah.
When you live there and you study there, you are exhausted. And when it's rest time, you rest deep. And there comes a point where you don't even hear the mind chatter anymore. All you hear is the chanting, because you chant so much in groups that I remember when my mind finally shut up, and in stillness, standing, listening to wind, I could hear us chanting. And the chants were just running through the mind. That's why people do it.
Yeah.
Because it shuts up all that mind chatter.
Oh, yeah. That's why I listen to stand-up comedy when I go to bed at night. Shuts down my own internal monologue, and I listen to comedians.
There are different techniques. Laughing, serotonin, watching funny stuff on TV. Much better before you sleep than something horrific, or the news.
Yeah. No, I try not to do that. I don't think I've picked up a newspaper or watched a cable television channel in 2 years.
There's lots of stuff. Yeah. I mean, I have a sleep program I built called End Sleep Envy. It's on my coaching site, but you can find it. It's End Sleep Envy, or right now it's housed at ambikascoaching.com. And to help people get sleep, because in talking to people and counseling and working in holistic health for many, many years, I realized this is a big issue that people have.
Oh, yeah.
Needing to get deeper, better sleep. And I told you when we first started chatting earlier, I slept for a really long time last night, and I needed it. I knew it, and I had the luxury to do that, but most people don't. Yeah,
it's really tough. I think there's some pretty good recent evidence that most people are sleep deprived and sleep
I
poorly.
think, I'm in my 60s, and people look at me and say, wow, you look like you're in your 40s.
I wouldn't have guessed. Well, I thought you just went a little gray early. It happens to us, some of us sometimes.
Right, exactly. I stopped coloring it, but yeah, I mean, I'm proudly wearing the wizardly locks, of silver. And
absolutely.
I definitely am grateful. I am so very grateful that I'm at this place in my life where I can say, okay, what does this body want? What does it need? And give it to it.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I suppose the last thing then with that final experience of grasping the staff and not being able to read the words yet. But if you look at the arc of the dream and any decisions you made following it, in terms of a lot of these things come to us to show a particular concept, or to let us take an object, hold it out in front of our head and turn it around and look at it from different angles and find out, first of all, what is it? And now what do I want to do about that? Did you make any changes, take any different paths, reaffirm any commitments based on, at that time in your life?
Well, definitely, because if you recall, I said I was living here, I was in Florida, I was dealing with decisions. Yeah. I was having to take over being the administrator of my mother's life.
Okay.
She had her wits, but I had to take over all the business of taking care of another person's life.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, and I was a fish out of water. I had never done that for another person. And I feel really good as I look back on all the decisions I made. And
Very good.
I feel really good about asking for help or doing research and trust me, some of it was not easy.
Yeah.
I had to go through stuff. And if any of you have gone through this, and you probably will go through the end of somebody's life with somebody else.
Most of us have parents, and they're older than us.
It's a challenging time, and it can leave you many, many moments of wondering, what the heck am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
But now that as I look back on the experience, and also you have to deal with other people's feelings and everything they're going through, and sometimes you have to manage that too. I feel really good about how I handled it. And I feel like I'm at a place in my life, which is maybe why I wanted to talk about this dream with you today, because maybe it's time for me to go back to the dream realm and take up that goad and see where I'm going next.
Absolutely. I think so. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways of conceptualizing what happened to you in terms of that dream experience, because the mind is a very broad thing. It can be, well, how do I think? What do I think about a particular thing? How do I want to approach a new problem? What's going to be my learning process for this new experience? How do I make sure I'm using my tools, my abilities to the best that I can? There's a lot of different angles to look at how that came into implementation. So, well, I don't know if you feel like you got any additional insight out of kind of taking a second look at it.
No, I feel like we're complete. But if you ever want to get together and talk another dream, I'd love it. And I promise to bring a fresh one.
Very much so. That's nice. Well, yeah, that's about it. I mean, we just take a look at it and see if we can get a story going and get a little bit of an answer of what do those symbols mean? Why did they come to me at that time in that form, and make some sense of it.
It's definitely worth digging through my old journals and finding that one.
That too. Yeah. Take another look at it. Be happy to hear from you.
I will for sure. I'll let you know. Maybe we do a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure being with you.
Absolutely.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard.
Oh,
thank you for having
much.
me as a guest on your show.
Yeah. And I'll just say again, one more time, this has been Ambika Devi, and I'll spell that for you guys. AMBIKADEVI, ambikadevi.com, and multiple sources you can find from that.com.
You can find all my social links on my site. You can sign up for my newsletter. Join my mailing list. I swear I only send one a month.
Right, not multiple a day.
I am not one of those funnel people. And but I do have my own podcast, which it houses guided meditations, a lot of them for dreamers.
Yeah.
And one of my popular ones is a guided meditation I did years ago for a live group for dreaming. It's still the most popular. That one is the most popular on Insight Timer. You can find me there if you're an Insight Timer user. And I just started to put audio versions of my articles that I write on Medium also on my podcast about sound and about meditation. So that's Meditate with Ambika. But again, everything is at ambikadevi.com.
Very cool. And you've got years of experience and lots of great wizardly wisdom to share with people. It's been great having you. I'll just do my housekeeping. Hey, stop what you're doing. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, buy a coffee mug, t-shirt, direct donations, 12 books of historical dream literature. That's the housekeeping from me. All in links in the description below. And Ambika, thank you for coming. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, and everybody out there, thanks for listening.